Hello, welcome back to How to Rewrite Your Stars. This is Benjamin Fincher, your host with Starlight Mentoring, and today I'm joined by the amazing Jason Hewlett. And I say that because I've met him before and I know that he is super awesome. So, Jason, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Benjamin, for having me today. This is cool to be a part of this. Yeah, I've been a speaker and a performer for the last 20 years and gone through all kinds of things, whether it was in Las Vegas, where I had an opportunity to perform, to going overseas and performing for the troops as well. I've just released a book in 2020, which is pretty exciting, called The Promise to the One. And maybe we'll talk more about that today. I don't know. It's up to you, man. But I know that having the opportunity to be here with you is really exciting for me, and I appreciate you allowing me to be here today.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what we end up talking about because the conversation always evolves in whatever direction's right to go. Um, So let's start out by asking you this. So I personally know a little bit of your story, but for those listening that don't even know who you are, maybe, would you mind giving us a little bit of your story? Like you just mentioned that you've been a performer and a speaker for 20 years now. Where did that start? Where was the turning point, and what things have happened along the way?
Well, as a kid, I found out I was good at performing, just doing voices and mimicking things as a kid, finding out I could mess with the teacher and they didn't know who was talking, or, doing voices of impressions that I heard, like Mickey Mouse, Donald, and Goofy. Oh boy, hi everybody, Mickey Mouse here. All right, where's Goofy? Where's Mickey? And Donald Duck, and so I could do all these kind of sounds. I know you do a mean impression of something. I don't know if you're going to do that today for us, but uh,
Well,
maybe
well,
I'll
I can
share it
do
with us
myself a
later.
good Irish accent if that be what you're wondering about.
There you go. Nice. So
And one that viewers might be a little bit freaked out by is
there you go.
where's the
That
precious?
right on. So yeah, I mean, we all find out, I think, as kids that we can do stuff like that, whether it's impersonate a voice, an accent, see a movie, and we go, "Oh, I got that." And then eventually we just use it as something like as a party trick. Eventually that's what it becomes. For me, it became my career, which I find fascinating. That the thing that I did that made others laugh when I was young became the thing that has made me a living. And that's really a wonderful opportunity for anybody that's sitting here listening or watching and going, I wonder how I could ever do that. Could I make of myself in my life what I really, really love doing and what I think I'm good at and others think I'm good at? That's what's so fun about writing your stars, as you say. I think it's possible for us to do that. And so as a kid, finding out I could do those things that were unique, but really everybody around me could do it, I just kept amplifying it over and over again and identifying that I could do funny things with my face. And are you on like a YouTube or something with this, or is this just audio, Benjamin?
I normally do just audio, but I thought that maybe with what you do with your face, we could do a YouTube with this one.
We may as well cut at least a segment for everyone to see. But yeah, so as a kid, I found out I could control my lips, and I'm showing you, if you're listening, you got to go find this video clip. But I could control my face, and I could talk at the same time as I was moving my nose or my eyebrows or my lips. And I could make people laugh with that. Obviously, it was a weird thing, but it didn't land the opportunity to go on any dates, but it was really fun to make people laugh, right? And so as a kid, finding out I could do funny things led to being able to magnify that which I wanted to really become, which is what I am now as a speaker, entertainer, author. All of these things kind of in one allows me to keep my promise to the world. And so as a kid, finding out I could do voices, do faces, eventually finding out I could sing and do music that I really wanted to entertain people with. And of course, it started out with silly songs like Alvin and the Chipmunks, Christmas, Christmas time of me, that kind of silliness, to then becoming more of a serious singer who could do voices that were like, unforgettable, that's what you are, and kind of more of the classic music that then got me paid. That was very interesting to make a transition from Christmas to unforgettable. And I became this guy that in the Las Vegas years at the beginning of my career, I found out that if I just did a show that was interesting, funny, clean, and it got me paid to come in and do a birthday party for a wealthy person or do a performance for a corporate event at the end of the night. They always needed somebody to make them laugh. And so I became known as the guy that could come in and do 100 voices, make you laugh, have a little nostalgia, and keep it clean for families. And that became my signature moves that I became known for. And so here we are. I don't know, Benjamin. What else am I missing in the story that you want me to share with your listeners?
Well, I gotta say, I can never listen to REO Speedwagon again after hearing you that one time.
Oh, I can't fight this feeling anymore. Right? Everybody does the
Yep,
R.
yep. And I'm just like, every time that song pops on now, I'm just like, it just keeps going. It just keeps going.
That's the goal, was to ruin that song for you, Benjamin, and everyone that's ever heard it. And really, that became another one of my signatures, was to say, what are the signature moves of the artist and how can I overemphasize it to such a degree that it makes you laugh even more? So really with REO Speedwagon, I'm just highlighting that which they already do, which is overemphasize the R. And I can't fight this feeling anymore. I've forgotten what I started fighting for. And so I'm not even changing those words. But then there were other artists where I would change the whole song
Like
and make
Journey.
the words work. Yeah, make the words work for the music. So like you like the Journey one, I love that one too. It's like instead of open arms, I sing, and now I come to you with broken arms. You know, people can't hear that any different ever again.
Yep. Well, I think that's awesome to be able to kind of cover that history that you've gone through. And for those listening, even for myself, I'm curious, like, what enabled you to get into that space to where it was stopped being just a party trick and started being a living?
Oh yeah, I mean, I did this in high school and made people laugh and have fun, and then eventually a teacher mentored me into becoming this singer that was really pretty a good singer, like to the point that record deals and so forth were an option. And so it
Wow.
was after my mission to for my church to Brazil that I served between the age of 19 and 21, that it was actually while I was there that I realized I am unique on a worldwide level. It wasn't just like a regional thing, because in my cities where I grew up, I was unique, obviously, doing all these faces, voices, dancing, singing impressions, etc. And so in Brazil is where it was confirmed, oh, this is unique around the world. And so then when I came home from the mission, people were like, what are you going to do? Are you going to get married? Are you going to go to college? Are you going to get a job? And I said, I'm going to Las Vegas and I'm going to become the entertainer that the world needs to see because they've never seen anything like me. I really, I was trying to kind of shoot for like a mix of Jim Carrey meets Sammy Davis Jr. and Billy Joel. I mean, just this wild, over the top impressions comedy guy. And, but at the same time, to keep it G rated for families. And so, yeah, I just started doing everything for free that I could, whether it was for the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts events that they would hold, to church events. And eventually, after doing a lot of things for schools, assemblies for youth, teacher education pieces, and so forth, the next thing I know, people were offering me money. And to go from making nothing and just doing what you're good at, and then all of a sudden somebody says, I'll pay you $100. This was my first gig. I'll pay you $100 to come and sing the Alvin and the Chipmunk song at our corporate Christmas party. And I was like, $100? That song is like 45 seconds. That's like, you know, it's like Napoleon Dynamite. That's like $300 an hour. No, so I was so excited. And so
Yeah.
that was my first real gig, $100 for Alvin and the Chipmunks song. And I was like, wow, I'm in. I guess that I now charge $100 to do a minute long song. Now, what else can I do? And put together my first 15 minutes that were really good. And that consisted of my impressions of Alvin and the Chipmunks, my Michael Jackson dancing, my Billy Joel Piano Man, Jim Carrey. I mean, I was just putting it all together, all my faces and so forth. Mickey Mouse, Donald, Goofy. There was a good 15 minutes. People started paying me a couple $100 here and there. Then eventually I got brave and put together a half an hour, started asking for $1,000 and didn't get it all the time, but eventually started to get it. And then it just kind of rose from there, man. I think it starts with just having somebody believe in you and give you payment for what you do. That's a big deal.
Oh
And
yeah.
just like you as a mentor, I mean, I'm sure you mentored people for a while until you're like, oh, people will pay me for this. I love doing this. I'm good at this. This is something I should charge for. Then you put a price on it. What's really interesting is when the market drives your price for you.
Right.
That's a fascinating piece, is all of a sudden you're so busy at this level and everybody's going, well, we'll pay you more to get you, from here to here because we want you so much. And that's where my price just kept going up and up and up and up. And I've been grateful to make a living at it for 20 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's interesting you just brought up the fact of like me mentoring people because I didn't notice so much while I was in the area growing up that I was like distinct in being able to help people with their problems. Like I knew I could do it, but then I also went on that 2 year service mission for same church we both belong to.
Where'd
Um,
you go?
I went to Peru,
Ah,
so
right on.
neighboring country, different language.
Was it cold in that area or was it really hot? Which part
I,
of
I
Peru?
was I was in the mountains, so it was cold,
Yeah,
but I was
cool.
also in the jungle, so it was hot. So I had to
Such a
bring
cool
both
place,
warm and
Peru.
cold. I had to
Right
bring both
on.
warm
And
and cold clothes.
yeah,
And down there, like I started to realize, like, wait, like I do have the ability to like help people with their problems beyond what any of the rest of these people are normally being able to do. And so that's where I came back from off the mission. I'm just like, okay, like, what can I do? And um, it took me a little while to like get trained in how to do it really well. But as I've done it more and more, it's been like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And people have started to pay me, and it hasn't been quite to the point where it's like, oh yeah, I can like do this forever, but it's been to the point where it's like, okay, this is good and people like it. And so
yeah,
I think that's
good
been
for
really
you.
cool.
And the real trick from there, which I've seen on your website, and you're already growing it, is that you just get testimonials from people that are happy, happy customers, happy clients. You keep the promise to the audience, which is what I like to talk about. Your audience are the people you work for and with. And so as you continue to build that up, then people will start to talk more and more about it. And the truth is, if you're good at what you do, people will share it. And
Yeah.
that has driven my entire career. It's a word of mouth career, my friend. I'm telling you, Benjamin, I can't believe how my career has been not really a career of sales, rather a career of being good on stage in the moment when my performance time comes, and that then sells the next opportunity. And yet at the same time, I can teach you how to do sales because of that ability. When we're good at our performance, when we're good at that thing which we deliver to our clients, they will share us. They will then become our marketers. They become our salespeople. They become our agents. And it just continues. It's a nice cycle. So I'm sure that will happen for you. I'm sure it already has.
Yeah, it has started. And I think for me, I just need to be patient and just keep pressing forward.
Oh, yeah. The patience piece is tough because we want it right away,
And we
We're
want to
like,
not go get a job.
I want to
And
quit my job and I want to not have to do this or that. But the truth is, you're paying your dues right now. I'm paying my dues still in the places which I want to go. And so I still have to prove every audience, even with this podcast right now, there are people listening to me that are like, I don't know if this guy is legit and authentic or if he is the real deal. And so I have to win every single client. I have to perform 100% every single event. I have to win them every time. And that makes me bring my A game. And that's the best part about what we're talking about here is that when we keep that promise to perform at the highest level of engagement with every single situation we're in, then that will continue to snowball this effect of being known as somebody who keeps their promise every time they open their mouth and do something unique.
Open your mouth real big. um, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that that's pretty profound, actually. Um, one question I wanted to ask, more in relation to the listeners, because I feel like both you and I have fairly well identified what our thing is. How does someone figure out what their thing is?
Well, yeah, I call it the ICM process. And I know you've gone through this, which I appreciate you reaching out to me on LinkedIn. And if anyone wants to be friends or connected on LinkedIn, please join me there, Jason Hewlett. But, the ICM process is very powerful. And it took us years to come up with it. And it's just ICM, which is identify, clarify, magnify. So it's not hard to remember, and we made it that way for a reason. But when we identify that which makes us unique, we clarify that with others, and then we find out more of what we have when they clarify it for us. Then we can magnify all of those, which becomes our signature moves. And I believe that artists do this naturally. Whether it's somebody that finds out they're a good singer and then they play a guitar and then they add a harmonica, and now they have a signature move that if you see someone put the harmonica on with the guitar, you're like, oh, they're going to do the Bob Dylan impression. That became his signature move. And so everybody has something like that that's an artist, and they do it naturally. But we do this identify process. The very first part is to just say to ourselves, what isn't just one thing that I'm good at, but can I shoot for 100? Can I try to write down 100 gifts, skills, talents, aspirations, you name it? Whatever you want to become, that's what you write down. Whatever you're already good at in your own mind, not what you're not good at. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the times, even Benjamin, I'll be teaching this to leaders, and I'll say, hey, write down 100 things you're good at. And they're like, I can't even come up with five. But if I said to them, hey, write down 10 things you can improve, they'd be like, oh, I got 20. That's how we naturally think, isn't it? We go to the
Yeah.
negative. But
Yeah.
I'm encouraging your listeners to right now go for the positive. Say, I have 100 things I'm good at and that I'm going to be good at, and that I want to be creative myself, my gifts, talents, skills. And as you write those down, say you can only get to 20 or 30. That's okay. But once you start to unpack each word, that's where the real magic begins. So I would say, like on the top of my list when I was first starting out was entertainer. I am an entertainer. Now, what does that entail if I unpack that word? Unpacking that means for me that I'm courageous, that I'm a musician, that I'm a hard worker, that I'm persistent, that I'm gonna be Mr. Creativity. And then you unpack each of those words and what do those entail. Now, if you can see, that's where the 100 shows up, and you go, whoa, I do have way more than I thought. If you're willing to do the 100, then go through and circle the ones that you really like, and the ones that stand out to you. Just circle the ones that you go, whoa, I like those. And then whittle it down to your top 10. Come up with your top 10 list of what you identify for yourself, and it will change your life, even if you just do that first step of the
Yeah.
ICM process. Identifying the top 10 is a huge deal for anyone that's ever gone through the process. And guess what's a special little bonus to that, Benjamin? You
Yeah.
can do this multiple times in your life and it will change.
Mm,
That's
that's a
what's
good point.
exciting too.
Yeah.
And you told me that you've done the ICM process, and you've identified some of yours. Are you cool to share some of your identified top 10 or something you've got, or 20? What do you have?
Yeah. So as you're mentioning this, it makes me realize just how weird I am because it wasn't that hard for me to come up with 100 different words and not have to unpack any.
That's not weird, dude. That's perfect. That's why you're the rewrite the stars guy.
Right.
You already think that way. It's abundance mentality. And I love that about you. And so, yeah, so it's not weird. Okay. It's awesome.
Right. So I came up with 100, and I'll show this here on the
Whoa,
video. I think we'll put this one on YouTube because there's a bunch of good visuals on this.
that's amazing. Good
And
for
then,
you.
so out of those circled ones, there was actually 40 circled ones. And then I'm like, okay,
Wow.
let's go through that. Circle again. Okay, circled 20. Now let's just narrow it down to 10. And so with the
Wow.
top 10 of identify, I got adventurer, chief, deep, enthusiastic, king, loving, memorable, noble, pioneer, and visionary.
Well done. Well, I think I have an applause here. Let's.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's amazing, man. Good for you. Those are some seriously great words, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then at that same event that I first heard you speak at, I started going around the room and asking people to do the clarify portion because I'm like, oh, I know I can do 100 words. Like, let's get the clarified because I'm hearing a good group of people. So I just went around like asking everyone, like, hey, give me 2 to 3 words, give me 2 to 3 words, give me 2 to 3 words, give me 2 to 3 words. Like, asked almost everyone in the room. And out of a room of, what would you say? That was, I don't know if you remember, but it was probably like 60, 70 people in the room.
Yeah. Why don't you clarify for the listeners what the clarify portion is? Because I think I mentioned it a little bit, but what is clarify about?
Yeah, so it's really similar to the identify portion where you come up with 100 words, but instead of asking yourself, you're asking the people around you.
Nice.
And one that was really interesting that still stands out to me is you have the, oh, ask your family, ask your friends, ask your coworkers, ask some strangers, but you also said ask the customers you lost. I think that's really interesting because, like, I know you have your reasons for it, but just me thinking about it, it's like, okay, they saw something in you that either you didn't see in yourself and you weren't magnifying, or that you weren't magnifying to its full potential, and they can point that out to you and you can do better.
Nice. Well said. And that's exactly why it's there. There's another reason as well. Because potentially, if they were a client, they came to you for something specific, your signature moves or your promise that you made and kept to them originally. And then perhaps you stopped utilizing and magnifying that part of you that they really, really identified with. And so then you leave that behind while you're getting comfortable within the relationship of the client process, or this could even be in family, or with a ruined relationship. You could say, hey, what do I no longer bring that I used to, that you used to like about me? That's a really hard thing to ask people. But
Oof.
if you're willing to go there, then you'll start to see, oh, you know what, as much as I feel I've progressed in my maturity and my wisdom in my years, perhaps I've forgotten some of the greatness of my past, some of those pieces that I brought in my youth or my adolescence or my early adult years, when I was really fighting to win people's love or approval or business, let's just say. What maybe that was some of your best material, your best stuff that you no longer share. And so that's why it's important to even consider the people that might give you the negative stuff will probably give you some of the most positive, powerful reinforcements you've ever received in that clarify process.
Yeah, that's, I'm thinking, I'm like, who do I need to ask that question to now? And more family and friends than clients, bigger pool at this point. But yeah, that I can see that there would be a lot of gold that you could get from there.
Totally amazing, because they see things we will never see in ourselves. And they'll also remind us of what we no longer do that perhaps was greater than what we are currently doing. And so it's not a process where you go to somebody and you say, hey, clarify for me all the things I need to improve, because we have plenty of that. We
Right.
get plenty of feedback on the negative, like you should fix this and we need to go to therapy. And yeah, there's plenty of
Whether
that.
you ask for it or not,
Yeah,
that one
exactly.
just comes at you.
That's right. That comes at you from your boss. That comes at you from potentially a church situation. I mean, that comes at you in relationships. So that's what's so neat about this process is we're saying Don't tell me what's bad. Tell me what you see that is good about me. And then you can do the process back to that person. You can say, hey, tell me a few things you see about me. I'd like to tell you a few things about you that maybe you don't realize you're so great at. And this might be awkward to do in person. So you could text somebody or email somebody. That's simple. And it's very interesting the words you get. You'll get
Mhm.
words you never heard about you. And you'll be
I
like,
have a
huh.
book because of a word that I'd never heard, essentialist. And it was at this event that you and I are both at, and the person's like, "You're an essentialist." I'm like, "I have no idea what that is. I get the gist." And he's like,
uh,
"Read this book." I'm like, "I will
Greg
read that
McEwen.
book."
Yeah. Is it the Greg McEwen book,
I think so.
Essentialism?
Yes, yes, it is.
That's he's one of my favorites. Yeah, that's a unbelievable book. And good for you to be called an essentialist. I never have been. Thank you, Benjamin. Goodbye. I'm just kidding. That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. Um, so would you like me to share the top 10 from Clarify as well?
Heavens, yes. Let's hear it, man. I love this.
So I had adventurer under identify, but on Clarify, I had adventurous, encouraging, inspiring, intuitive, leader, open. It seems appropriate for the fact I'm sharing all these on a podcast.
Right on.
Passionate, sincere, valiant, and again, visionary.
Whoa, man. Those are some great words. And
Yeah.
even like a word like leader that somebody's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Well, maybe you didn't put that in your own list. I mean, sometimes that's what happens. We're like, well, I'm not a leader. And everyone else is like, yeah, you're the leader. So things like that where you go, oh, that's cool. And other times you're like looking at the words that they give you and they give you all the words you already had or a lot of them, like adventurer versus adventurous.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of a difference there, and maybe they'll give you a word you like better about yourself, where you're like, I
Right.
am an adventurer. Yes, I am. Right?
Yeah, definitely. The funny thing is, I thought that I still needed more words because I had them like all on a list, but the list wasn't numbered. So I asked it, and I got, I think, the final count of it. Mind you, I had to ask a lot more um, than just the initial 100 because there was a lot of repeats. Like kind, I got that one like 7 times,
There
which
you go.
is it can really help you figure out which ones you need to circle. It's
Yeah,
like, well,
man.
they said this one 5 times. I think that one's big.
Kind with a seven to the seventh power. There you
Right,
go. I love it.
right. So yeah, I ended up with like 150 total words, and then I ended up with like 115 unique words, something like that.
Wow. So let me ask you this. Now I'm going to turn the podcast around. I'm going to interview you on this because this is so
Okay.
cool that you've done this process. Obviously, you're already hyper aware of this type of process in your life. You're just that kind of guy that's Mr. Awareness and studying and working towards your best self already. Now, for a guy at that level that's already up here, what has that done for you, this process to just having gone through this for yourself? I mean, what did you feel about it? How did it impact you?
I think for me, it was just a compounding effect mostly. And what I mean by that is like I already had a fairly good view of myself because the 100 words was a lot easier than I led on to. Maybe even a year before I first learned the ICM process, I wrote out like 200 words about myself.
Nice.
So I was just like, okay, let's just try and come up with unique ones, and then if I need, I can go and check that list.
Yeah,
So
nice.
I think the biggest thing was just to getting the clarification from other people and saying, yes, you are this kind of a person.
Nice. Well,
Because I thought it about myself already, but to be going up to, and again, I said like, I think it was actually 3 to 5 words I would ask people for. And they gave me 3 to 5. And if you do the math, that's at least 33 people. Well, at least 20 people if they give you five. Between 20 and 33 people, depending on how many each person gives you. And to have that many people tell you, yes, you have this quality, 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 yes, you have this quality. For me, that was empowering to be able to say, yes, I am this kind of a person, and it's okay for me to shine this light.
Beautiful.
I think
And
that was really cool.
you're that kind of guy that's already doing the identify process even a year before you heard me say it. So obviously it's not a new principle or idea. I mean,
Right.
that's what's so cool about the work that all of us do. We're really just recycling or repackaging the eternal truths that already exist. Because whether we go back to the Bible or back to Plato and Socrates, it's already been written, already created, but let's just repackage it so perhaps we can quantify it for ourselves a little bit better. And so when you did your 200 a year ago and then your 100 recently, and then you did the clarify process after you've already identified your own, to do the clarify process seems like for you it was a real empowering moment to be like, man, I guess what I've been thinking and identifying about myself really is what other people are seeing. And now I can take these words, these lists, and magnify them with the world. That's a really powerful place to be.
Yeah. And it makes me think of, I don't know if it was Maya Angelou or who gave the poem that said our biggest fear isn't that we're inadequate, but that we're powerful beyond measure. And I mean, if we wanted to put a warning on this, it's like warning: if you do this process, you'll start to believe in yourself.
Dude, that's cool. I like that a lot.
And
Warning, if you do this, you will believe in yourself. I love it. That's funny.
so yeah, like I highly recommend doing this process, this ICM process. But uh, a side effect you might not realize is you might just start believing yourself.
You know what I'm thinking while we're talking here, I'm going to check it on my website to make sure that it's an actual live link. Yeah, let me give you a link for those listeners that want to even have a worksheet to do this
Oh,
with. Is that cool?
nice. Yeah, that's cool.
So it's jasonhewlett.com/ICM. Very simple, right?
Yeah, that's really simple.
jasonhewlett.com/ICM. So if they go there, they can get the worksheet, and then it's just very simple. If you just if you can't just take a blank sheet of paper, then go do this on this little worksheet, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, I just use a notebook for those that like notebooks, but those that like workbooks, it's right there.
Yeah, perfect. And then so we've now talked identify, we've talked clarify, and then there's magnify. Now magnify is the most important part, because if you know all of these wonderful attributes about yourself and you don't do anything with it, then you've broken your promise to the world. And so now you have great responsibility. You've been told by your peers, by your team members, your friends, and your family, some clients, maybe some lost clients, what it is that makes you great, what your signature moves are. And if you've gone so far as taking the identify and the clarify process seriously, and then you don't magnify those signature moves that make you who you are, then you are cheating the world. And that's called breaking the promise. But if you keep the promise, you now identify and clarify those signature moves that make you awesome, and you figure out a way to utilize them in every interaction with every client, customer, with every relationship within the team at work or within your team at home, your family. And that's what really this whole process comes to. So when people are listening to me teach the promise and why it's important, we have to go through ICM first in order to identify and clarify that which makes us an effective leader, in order to share our gifts, our strengths, our talents, our attributes, even our aspirations that are our signature moves. And then we keep the promise that way. Magnify. Huge deal.
Yeah. I want to touch more on this. Would you potentially be willing to share the story of how you first started thinking of the promise? At least I think that's where it started, the McDonald's or whatever that was, the playground.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got a family of four children, and we had them real quick. We had four kids in 5 years, and so it was one of those whirlwind times for young parents that might be listening. Like, oh, he knows what that's like. It was crazy, and I was also trying to run my business, which I am a one man show. Essentially, I do have people that help me as independent contractors, but there are no employees but me, and so work, running around, traveling, etc., and then having all these kids grow up real fast. It was a wild time, and I recall one day I opened the door from coming home after a long trip, and my little babies with all their little diapers, they all came running towards the door, and I go, "Daddy's home." And they ran right under my arm to their mommy who had just got me at the airport. And she had only been gone for like 30 minutes. I'd been gone for 2 weeks performing on a cruise ship. And that's when I realized I was not the favorite guy in town, if you will. I was not the best dad. And so I asked my wife, I said, "What's going on with the kids? Why don't they like me? What's wrong with me? I mean, everyone on stage likes me. Everywhere I go, they like me." She said, "Well, are you okay for some feedback?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "When you're home, you're not really here." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And she said, "When you're home, well, you're on your phone." And I said, "Yeah, I'm doing business. I'm working and I'm trying to keep everything together so that I can go on the next flight." And she said, "I know, but is that really what you're doing? Or are you just going somewhere else in your mind and through your phone?" And the truth is, Benjamin, I started to do some of my own assessment for myself, keeping track of what I was doing on my phone. Am I emailing? Am I texting? Is it all about clients and work? And then I realized that I was actually addicted to Facebook. And Facebook was fairly new at the time. This was over 10 years ago. And so I'm I'm looking at Facebook a lot. Like, I was very active on this app. And I asked my wife, I said, "What can I do to be better with that? I mean, just get rid of Facebook?" And she said, "No, just be present with the kids. That's all you need to do is be present. And maybe take them on a daddy son date or a daddy daughter date." And I was like, "All right." So I tried my first daddy son date. And I took my boy, who at the time was 3, and we went driving down the road for some health breakfast at McDonald's. And we're driving, and I looked in the rear view mirror, and he's in his little car seat just smiling. And I go, "Hey, buddy, why are you so happy?" And he goes, "I like it when you're nice, daddy, not mean, daddy." And I said, "When am I mean, daddy?" And he goes, "Just not right now." And I was like, "Oh, man."
Oh wow.
Like, I couldn't believe it. I'm saying it with a smile right now, but I'm telling you, it hurt. A little
Oh
3-year-old like stabbed me in the heart. And so
yeah, I
the
can
children tell the
start to
truth.
imagine.
Children tell the truth like it is. So we pull into the McDonald's. He goes running up the slide, to go. Right before that, we took a selfie because I wanted to make sure to document this. Hey, so we took a selfie together. He runs up the slide and he's like, "Daddy, daddy," and I'm like, "Yeah, good job." And he goes down the slide, and then he goes back up. He's like, "Daddy, daddy," and I'm like, "Ha ha," and he goes down the slide, and he goes back up. He's like, "Daddy, daddy," and I'm like, "I've had enough." I was that dad that was like, "I haven't really done this. I've just let my wife do this." I hate to admit it, but that's where I was.
Yeah.
And I was not used to like this pattern of them needing to see you and attention and all this the whole time. And slowly, as I became bored with the situation of my son going down the slide, what do you think I did? I pulled out my phone and I went to Facebook, like, not even thinking about it. And I started to post the selfie my son and I had just taken. And I wrote on a Facebook post, "I am having a great daddy son date with my boy at McDonald's." And Benjamin, in that moment, I realized I am the ultimate hypocrite. And I looked up at my son, and he was standing there waiting, waving at me, looking for me to see him. Now imagine that as a dad, as a young dad. You don't think it's ever going to end, but it does. And here I am 10 years or so later, and I'm going, man, I wish I could get that back. You don't get it back, ladies and gentlemen. You don't get it back.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had something of a vision that said, you need to commit to your son, you need to commit to your family. And I deleted the post, and then I did something even braver. I held my finger down on the app, and it started to do like this little dance. and I was like, delete, and it was like, are you sure? Come on, man, we're best friends. The app was dancing. Don't leave me. And I deleted it. I put my phone back in my pocket. Facebook was now gone off my phone. I knelt down in front of the slide and I said, come here. And my son zipped down the slide right into my arms. And he said, can we play? And I said, yeah, let's play. And it was in that moment the promise was born, because I realized that I was not present as a dad, was not present as a husband, and that I needed to keep the promise to myself to be present in all of those opportunities, situations, and blessings with my family. So that's why it was created. And hey, bless you. I saw you muted yourself while you're sneezing.
Thank you.
Is that the story you wanted me to share?
That was it. And as I was looking up your website and stuff, as I was reaching out to you, word of mouth, word of mouth business. As I was reaching out to you to be on the podcast, I looked at your website and came across one of the videos, or no, it was an article where you shared about keeping the promise. And as I read that, it really put me to thinking. I'm like, and over the past week or so that I'd read that article, I've been thinking about my promises, and there's been some things come up and happen. I'm just like, okay, like this didn't happen. Was it my responsibility? Was it my promise? Or did somebody else fail on theirs and then it wasn't me breaking my promise? But then as I'm saying this, it goes back to, okay, did I do everything in my power? And a lot of the time I didn't. And it really gets you to thinking, okay, how am I on my integrity? How am I on my commitment? What are my promises?
Yeah, it's a powerful concept, and it's not meant to be something that makes you feel guilty. And sometimes people do. They're like, oh, I don't want to go there. A promise is too strong of a word. I've had too many promises broken to me. I'm not going to break promises to others and so forth. And I get it. But I know that a lot of people lean on the word goals, and I've been a goal setter my whole life. That's why I've accomplished a lot in the amount of time that I have. But goals are very important. But I do like to ask the question, why set a goal when we can make a promise? Because not to say that a goal is not important, but if you miss a goal, you just reset the goal. There is really very little consequence.
Right.
But if you make a promise and you break it, you have a problem. I mean, there could be some serious ramifications if you don't keep that promise. And so essentially a goal is something that we shoot for, and a promise is what we become. And so what are we becoming? It really becomes something ingrained within us. One person said, a promise seems to be like a sacred goal, which, yeah, I agree. It's just another level. It's a higher level of commitment. It's the highest level of engagement we commit to in any circumstance. And so what are our promises? And that's what's nice about the ICM process is we do identify, clarify, magnify. Once we magnify that which makes us uniquely who we are, now we do our promise proclamation. So that is, we proclaim and we promise to share our gifts, our talents, and our skills in every situation, in every engagement. And so as a young father, realizing that I'm not fully present watching my son up on that slide, and I'm not fully present when I'm home because I'm on my phone all the time. What are the ways that I can keep my promise, not just to my family, but to myself, what must be removed, the debris of our lives, which I love that quote from um, Russell Nelson, who said, "What is the debris we must remove from our lives in order to live at the highest level we can?" I truly believe that it comes down to finding out what are the goals that we can set to get to where we want with our promises. So, like I say, goals are particulars, promises are proclamations. What do you proclaim within your promise?
Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure what to add on to that because that just kind of put it all together.
Oh, but it's nice to think about, right? I mean,
Right.
we don't need to be stressed out about it. We can just say to ourselves, I promise myself tomorrow I'm going to wake up when my alarm goes off. Maybe it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Or instead of tomorrow waking up and looking at Facebook right away, I'm going to read something that's really inspiring. I don't know what yours might be. And it's not to say for example that we have we have promises that that are huge and that are little and so forth and everywhere all around the place, but just think of those things that are the non-negotiables. What is a non-negotiable in your life? Like, you
Staying
will
on the
show up.
podcast instead of answering the phone call.
Yeah, right. So the phone's ringing. I'm like, I thought I'd turned it off. So, like, I am fully present with you. And I mean, unless the power goes out or something crazy, I'm fully present right here with you. This is what we've committed to.
Right.
You're present with me. I'm present with you. That's our promise. We kept it. Here we are. And maybe the promise for the listener is to listen to a podcast to better your life. Good for
Mhm.
you.
Yeah,
That's a big deal. I
it
know for
is.
me, as I came up with the ICM process, it was like identified what I've got, I clarified with others, my magnifying my promise. If there's an overarching proclamation I've come up for myself, it's that I proclaim and I promise to spread joy. That's what it is. I'm a joy spreader. So, however, I can do that, whether that's making you laugh, doing music and faces and comedy, or telling a touching story about my children and how I became a better father, even within my own errors, I'm trying to teach and inspire and entertain. I am spreading joy, and that's my promise.
That's an excellent promise.
And it's simple,
Yeah.
not that tough to keep either, right? I mean, but at the same time, if I get a customer that's unpleasant, what's my promise?
Right.
I'm still going to spread joy to that client. So when I love it when I get a angry customer because I'm still trying to spread joy to them. It makes my life really fun. And it's just like a game. Every elevator that opens, I'm like, "Hey, you going up?" I mean, I'm doing whatever I can, not not in a fake way, but like in a way that I can, right?
Right. And you use your things, your gifts, your talents, like you were
Mine,
sharing earlier.
just like you've got yours, and if we all share ours, we make the world a wonderful place. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Think about those voices, man. Think about that voice alone. Like that guy, Louis Armstrong, was told, don't sing. Your voice is too gravelly. Just play the trumpet because he was the greatest jazz trumpet guy. But he loved to sing do boo ba doo doo da ba doo doo. Oh, when the saints go
Go
marching
marching
in. Oh,
in,
when the saints
saints
go
go marching
marching in. Oh
in.
yes, you know it.
Oh, how
You
I
got it.
want to be in that number when the saints go marching in.
Oh yeah, Benjamin, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, it's
Here's
a
the
good
thing.
time.
I love that you sang along. I love that you went for it because you're just that kind of guy. You keep the promise to be fully present, to go for it 100%. That's what it's about. That's why you're successful. And when we think about the voice of Louis Armstrong, what made him unique is that he shared his voice,
Yeah.
and that gave permission to other people to share their unique voice. And so when you share your uniqueness, when you keep your promise, that opens up the opportunity and the permission of other people to follow you. And then you become a leader. So that's how it works. It's a very simple thing, but it's very profound.
Yeah. And another thing with being a leader, each episode of the podcast, I share a vision board success. And this week, it's actually the laptop I'm currently connecting with you from.
Nice.
So I knew I wanted a laptop because I only had a phone at the time. And so I go to Costco and I like look at all the different laptops they have and think of all the specs I want on it. I find one that I like. It was also a color I liked, which was a bonus. I take it, snap a picture of it, stick it on my wall, and make sure I had the specs on it too,
Oh, yeah.
and stick it up on my vision board. And then I imagined like sitting at my desk, connecting with people, with essentially keeping the promise with these people that I hadn't reached to yet. And this one came off the vision board pretty quick. Let's see, I write the dates on them. So this one I put on April 11th of 2019. I took it off May 4th of 2019. So that one was less than a
Oh,
month.
wow. Yeah.
Less than a month.
The power of intention, the power of, so many people don't believe this stuff, but it so much works. I mean, I love that you shared the laptop, and for those that are thinking, out there, well, I don't know if that really works. Well, try it out.
Yeah.
Test it out, even if it's just a parking spot, like instead of going, I don't know if you saw the movie The Secret or listened to the book, but I'll tell you, every time I'm driving somewhere, I'm envisioning that there is a parking spot up there. And then there is. It's just what it is. It's
And the
cool.
lights are all green.
Lights are all
And
green. I want to show you something for your viewers. I want
okay.
to show you one of my vision board things, and I'm going to switch the camera here. So this is my GoPro angle, and I was not able to do what I'm doing right now until the intentions and the vision boards and the putting it out to the world that I want to be able to create something like this. So I'm going to show you what wasn't even just a year ago is now a way that I make a living. This is my full studio in my home office. So this is how I'm doing all of my events from my house now. This is the
Wow.
camera I've been on the whole time. It's very nice, isn't it? Yes, let's
Yes,
switch
yes, it
back.
is.
And that's the nice camera. This thing allows me to switch back and forth between all sorts of different camera angles. For example, there's another one up there where I can dance and I can sing and move around, not lit up yet, but you get the picture. And then there's all kinds of other stuff here from the laptops I need to the iPod to be able to play music to even doing the sound effects you heard earlier. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So why is that important for me to show you? It's the power of intention and our vision boards, and I hope that your listeners are utilizing the power of a vision board. It's very, very, very inspiring to see that you got that laptop. And I'll tell you what, I had to envision all of this, and eventually it's been pieced together through the years to be able to make it so that for the last year, I've been able to do podcasts, virtual events. All my events were gone March of 2020, all of them, all the live events that I speak at, and I speak at large events. Now I'm doing them all from right here in my house. Hello. So when they introduced me back in a long time ago, now it's like, I'm Jason Hewlett. Thanks for the applause. I don't get what I used to get. And so it's kind of interesting, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, man, it's pretty cool.
Well, and the really awesome thing about that is you set the intention to keep your promise because you're sharing your gifts to be able to spread joy, like you just shared. And it's not like you could just go down to Best Buy or Walmart or Amazon or wherever and just say, okay, I'm getting my speaker setup. It's like they don't sell those. You have to buy the parts.
Oh
And
yeah.
so bringing up the intention you had there is like you had to visualize each part because you had to think, okay, what am I going to use? What am I not going to use? And where is it going to be? This is like all of that. I'm sitting here with my laptop and my light. Can you see that? You can,
Perfect. Yeah.
and that lights my face up so that it's
That's
not
right.
super dark because
Good
that's
for
it
you,
off
man.
and you can hardly see my face and that's it on. And that's where I'm at right now. I haven't visualized anything else yet except for a second monitor, which wouldn't fit on the desk right now.
Yeah, and that's just the point. I mean, you can just keep adding to it, but we want to follow people that inspire us to reach higher, correct? We
Yeah.
want to we want to see what other people are doing and then we go, "Oh, maybe I can do something like that." And then equally, if we see somebody who's maybe written a book and we go, "Oh, I have a book in me." Well, put it on the vision board or make a promise that you're going to write it and set a deadline for yourself and then create little goals every single day to make it so that you do the particulars, but then what's your promise is to have it delivered and to have it show up to the world. That's how this whole thing works. Very simple. And even the best of us forget to do it sometimes, and that's where promises are real tricky.
Yeah.
We forget to do them. We're like, oh, I made a promise to myself, I forgot. And so I'm just a professional reminderer, I guess.
And I think one thing that's come up in my head a couple of times as we've been talking is actually the word of that retreat that we met at, Genshai. I've got my little wristband here,
Oh,
my little
nice.
coin over here. And for those that have no idea what in the world Genshai is, it's a Sanskrit word from India, and it means to never treat another person in a way that would make them feel small, including yourself. And so I know the first time I met you, Jason, was at that Genshai retreat and talking about keeping your promise. Genshai is an amazing way to keep your promise because when you do slip up, you remind yourself, hey, I don't treat myself small. I don't treat anyone small, including myself. So I continue forward with my promise and I forgive myself. And I screwed up, yes. I forgive myself and I move on.
No, beautifully said though, brother. That's good. I I I've been talking for the last hour on this podcast about the promises to others, the promises to our clients, the promise to our audience, promise to our teams or our families, but I have yet to talk about the promise to the one. That's the book I wrote. And the one is yourself. A lot of people are like, is this some spiritual something? Well, yeah, it debuted at number one on the spiritual self help category of Amazon. And yes, it's a spiritual thing. I'll tell you what, uh, it's not necessarily a religious thing, however. I mean, I mentioned where I come from, my culture, just because it's factual. But the promise to the one is about yourself spiritually, morally, ethically, integrity, your character, your habits, what you're doing each day, what you do when no one is looking, and how we keep our promises to ourselves. Because if we keep the greatest promises to ourselves, we will be even better for the people that we serve. But so often we break those promises to ourselves to take care of ourselves, to either whether it's work out or eat right, or it's just to meditate in the morning and to get ready, or going and driving in our commute and listening to the wrong thing where we could be listening to something like this podcast that inspires us
Oh, yeah.
and gives us our best self before we go and serve everyone else. Well, what happened, especially in the pandemic, is this lack of self care, is this lack of feeling like I have any time for myself anymore because we were quarantined and we were just focused on, getting through the day and so forth. How can we keep great promises to ourselves, for ourselves? It's essential and it's important. Maybe for the somebody listening today, they might be thinking to themselves, I keep promises for everybody but myself. And that's why you need to listen to this today, is to just say to yourself, what promise can I make to myself that I can keep every day, that makes me go, I'm really happy about my life. Maybe that's just opening a good book for 5 minutes every day, or maybe that's turning on the music and dancing around while the babies are asleep in the other room. Whatever it might be for you. Walking outside after this podcast is what I'm going to do for me, Benjamin. I'm going to walk outside, breathe in the air, look around. I might walk around the block once, and then I got to come back and do some more stuff on the camera. But if I am just drilling down and doing everything for everyone instead of anything for myself today, I'm going to burn out. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we wrote The Promise to the One. It's a powerful book.
I'm going to do that same thing. Thanks for reminding me of the promise to myself to take care of myself. I'm going to get outside after we're done here.
Good.
Walk around the block.
And it sounds so simple, like, oh, that's so easy. No, it's not.
You
A
have to
lot of
walk
us,
out the door after
yeah,
you're dressed, and then you have to walk down the 2 flights of stairs and then get to the sidewalk before you can start walking on it.
that's right. But a lot of people might be like, oh, I got to catch up on my emails. Oh, I've got the next thing coming up. I've scheduled myself too much. Well, then maybe promise yourself over the next few weeks as you schedule your life not to do back to back to back to back, but at least give yourself a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room. That will keep your sanity. That keeps you your best self. And I know it's easier said than done, but just got to start implementing those little things. Go take that walk. Go take that break. It'll change your day. It'll change your life.
Even just sitting still at your computer, not doing anything, and just coming over here, just a minute, even just setting a timer. If you don't have one, just Google timer, it'll give you one. Just a minute and just sitting here, just like this, and just be still with or without
Totally.
your headphones still on.
A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, if I were to say to you right now, let's take a minute to breathe. Now you're going to remember that you have to breathe, right?
Right.
We've been forgetting that for the last hour. I didn't remember I breathe. Yeah, you do. Now I want you to breathe in your nose just for a minute. Just breathe in, not in your mouth, but your nose. Now let it out of your mouth. Just that simple thing. How powerful it is. I mean, I'm not some self-help guru breather guy, but I know that for me, when I'm like, oh, I do have to breathe, I should remember that because I'm shallow breathing, getting through the gig. Stop for a second. Okay, promise myself I'm going to give myself my best. Okay, I give myself oxygen, I expel. Ready to go. Here we go. Right? Very
It
simple.
feels so much more revitalized after 5 deep breaths, even after just one.
For sure. It's as old as any kind of practice we can do in the world.
Right.
And yet we forget it because we're like, I'm getting through everything. I got to do this. I got to email him. I got to help her. Right?
Well, especially in your line of work with presenting, like you can get up there on stage, and if you're not well practiced, you get up there the first couple times and you have to have someone there in the back of your mind reminding you, remember, breathe. And you're just like,
Yep. Yep. A lot of people ask me, they go, what do you do right before you go on stage? I go, well, first of all, I'm jumping around, I'm bouncing around, I'm getting my energy, I'm shifting my energy so I have enough to bring everyone. And then I go into a very deep state of breathing. And I just breathe right through it. And I'm filling myself with gratitude and thankfulness to get to have the opportunity to perform and speak for these people. And I'm saying a prayer to the God above to please let me speak to the hearts of the people that need to hear it. And what can I say that will be said in the right way for them to internalize it and to change their life? Here I come. I come out on stage and boom, off we go. It's awesome.
Yeah. You get out there and do the intro like you just did with us and start singing about open eye. No, that's Broken Arms.
That's right.
Drawing your R's out with the REO Speedwagon. And
Yeah, you saw me speak. I mean, you were probably sitting there like, I wonder what this speech will be about. And then all of a sudden, this guy shows up and is singing all this comedy. And you're like, am I learning anything? But this is hilarious. This is great.
and then
then
you do
it's a
the
nice break.
Velociraptor impersonation.
There you go. Yeah. And so I'm doing all this stuff that's actually awakening your senses. I'm like, hey, how about a raptor? And everybody's like, I thought you were going to speak about leadership. And then I go, boom, I've just opened your heart. Now let's talk to your mind. It's called laughing and learning. It all happens at the same time if we're willing to open our heart to the laughter or to the music, and we get that feeling where we're like, oh, I love this. Then we connect the dots and say, hey, what's your promise to share your best self in every situation, in every engagement? And everyone's like, whoa, like that's a new thing to say. But I
Right.
just, but it's just a new package delivery system. That's all it is. It's me keeping my promise to share my signature moves from the ICM process. We wrap it all up in a bow.
Oh yeah. And I feel like we did a pretty good job of just tying the bow. Um, there's so much more we could talk about, which is awesome. Before we wrap up though, and take our fingers off the bow, anything you'd add here, Jason?
Well, I just want to say that for anybody that's sitting there thinking to themselves, I don't think I can rewrite the stars of my life. I don't think that I have this in me. Well, it's time to stop thinking that way. First of all, I'm just going to give you a little dad advice and to just say to yourself, you are awesome. You have so much greatness within you. And as you're being introspective and thinking about your greatness, what makes you wonderful, maybe it's time to get out and start serving others. Maybe you need to just forget about yourself for a minute and go help others, not for a compensation, but just go do something of service. And then you'll start to reflect even more on what your greatness is. And it's just this give and go pattern of keeping promises for others and then finally to self. And when we start to really keep promises to the one, to ourselves, we will bring ourselves to a whole new level. We can rewrite any kind of scripting in the sky that we believe has been there, and we can rewrite it. There is no question. We can go in any direction we want as long as we put it on a vision board. We proclaim it to the world. We create our promise, go through the ICM process, give it a chance, give yourself a chance to identify, clarify, and then magnify your promise, and it will change your life. You can go any direction of success you choose, but it's up to you. No one's going to do this for you. And maybe that's your promise today, is to just say, I promise myself I'll do this for me. And that could very well be this very moment, this very day, could be, should be, and can be that tipping point of your life where you go, I remember listening to that podcast. That changed my whole trajectory. That's what we want out of this. That's why we took the time to be here. And that's why we open our mouths and proclaim the promise in every chance we get.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jason. And just to reiterate it, like Jason just finished saying, you can rewrite your stars. Doesn't have to start with anything super big. Just one step at a time. Go back to the saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And maybe you don't like elephant, maybe you prefer horse, or maybe you think that's just weird and you want to go eat some pig. Or maybe you like the salad and you want to go eat a salad, you get that big salad. You just start with one bite. You climb a mountain, you start with one step. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And maybe listening to this podcast episode was that step, or maybe the thing that you've decided you're going to do to keep the promise to yourself, to keep the promise to the one after this, like I'm going to go outside and walk around the block. Maybe that's the first step. And I remember hearing once, the most important step in a journey isn't the first step and it isn't the last step, it's the next step. So whatever that next step looks like for you, take it. You've got this. You can rewrite your stars. Both Jason and I have done it, and we're still in the process of doing it. And we're trying to get the message out there to you and to those you love and those around you that you can as well. And that's a wrap.
Well done.
Oh, actually, let me add this part in it. I'll just clip this part. Um, so, Jason, if people wanted to find out how to book you or how to work with you, I know you shared where the ICM process worksheets are, but where can they find you at?
Well, thank you. They just need to go to jasonhewlett.com. Hewlett spelled like Hewlett Packard, Hewlett, and go get that ICM process packet. It's very cool. The worksheet. It's very nice. And then if you'd like me to come and speak for your corporate event, your team leadership, if you want it to be funny and engaging or just sit back and learn and be inspired, there's all kinds of opportunities there, whether it's in person or virtual. And then of recent, we've started the Promise Institute. If you want to look more about that, it's at promiseinstitute.com. And yeah, we're now going around to different companies around the country, and we're teaching them through the ICM process workshop, as well as the leadership game, which is created by John Maxwell's team, which is amazing. And I'm not a certified John Maxwell trainer yet, but I will be soon. And my partners are the co-founders with me of the Promise Institute. So we're doing the leadership game. We're creating the peer experience, which is the Promise engagement experience roundtable. And we're just doing a lot of neat things, whether it's online courses, online trainings, videos that you can have delivered to you with me in them every single week to your inbox to train your leadership and your teams. Pretty cool what's going on. So those are a couple of ways and places to find me. And if you want the book, Amazon, Promise to the One. So that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. And for those looking to do more with me, be sure to head on over to starlightmentoring.com. You can find out how to work with me, get more links to season 1 of the podcast and other videos. Get a link there to the video of what Jason and I did here today, because you definitely want to see his face on that. Again, thank you so much for listening.